Thanks a lot. And with this positions that Elka just mentioned, I'm actively part of the research infrastructure landscape in Germany. And so I would like to walk you through a few views on what research infrastructure means for us in this specific context now. So first step, what is research infrastructure actually? What do we mean by that? And if you're coming from a more technical perspective, this might mean something like actual physical storage capacities, maybe even buildings and other things. If you're coming from other areas, this is a lot about also procedural steps, organizational efforts, and non-physical resources that help to make, to facilitate research in different ways. And this is the perspective that I'd like you to have in mind here for the rest of the talk, that we're talking partly about technical things, but we're also talking a lot about organizational procedures and workflows. Some examples of what research infrastructure can mean are data. So the department that I'm heading is hosting a data archive, for example, for the social sciences. It also means different data access modalities. It can mean hardware. It can mean tools, reusable methods. It can mean consulting activities, guidelines, best practices. It can mean standards and other organizational frameworks. So a lot of things fall under this umbrella of research infrastructure. And now the next question is, why do we care? Why is this important for us? Why do we need it? And I could add many more reasons why we need it here, because this is, of course, very dear to my heart, but I'm leaving you with 4 key reasons why we need this. First of all, infrastructure resources that are available to a broader research community can help to reduce the barriers for people to actually do research, and will leverage the boundaries between people working in rather rich institutions and others for doing certain, for applying certain methods, for doing certain kind of research. So this is important. It also reduces the effort on several layers where research infrastructure institutions can provide centralized resources so that not every single researcher will have to do certain steps on their own, which costs time, money, resources, personal resources, and so on. Another important part is it establishes, ideally, some sort of standards, best practices, agreed upon workflows in the community on how to do certain things. And finally, it can, if it is part of a bigger infrastructure funding context, it can enable long-term sustainability of different aspects of how we do research. So this is why we need research infrastructure. So how do we now get from existing research infrastructure to research infrastructure for online platform data? And this is actually something that we at GESIS have been working on for much longer than the DSA is existing and is on the radar. So we've been looking into this. What kind of research infrastructure, what kind of support do researchers need when working with online platform data in the API age, in other contexts, in regard to what methods do we need, what ways are there to collect data, and from different perspectives. And I'd also like you to keep that in mind, because some of the things I will show you later are not only relevant for the context of the DSA, but also in other contexts. Online platform data are special in many ways, but still we can derive a lot of practices from other areas that have already well-established procedures for handling research data. So we are actively involved in the community of data archives, or where data sharing practices, data documentation, data access models are the thing. So these are things that people professionally engage with, and where solution exists for many contexts that can also be adopted here. And this also applies for how to handle sensitive data. So online platform data are a special kind of sensitive data, but there are practices for how to work with sensitive data in various other domains, very prominently in the life sciences, health sciences, but also for administrative data, for example. So statistics agency, for example, they have established practices for how to work with these things. And one terminology that I'm using here quite interchangeably with another terminology is trusted research environments. So there are TREs, trusted research environments in these domains. Later I will say a secure processing environment. There are differences, but for you today it should be just treated equivalent for now, and we can talk about the details in another context. Okay, so we can learn from things that are out there. I want to highlight 3 elements that I think as infrastructure are key for the next steps when working specifically with the DSA. And there's more, but these are the 3 I picked for today. So this is researcher support, secure processing environment / trusted research environment, and secondary data usage. And I'll quickly walk you through these 3 now. So when I say researcher support, I'm talking about, so you remember the slides from Julian a bit earlier, there was a lot about, we need a data management plan. We need to demonstrate that we have data protection practices in place and so on. So there are a lot of things that are now officially demanded from researchers who want to work with kind of data that need expertise in a centralized way. And this is where researcher support can happen in infrastructure institutes, specifically in those that have been dealing with data management as an area for several years in other contexts. So this is research data management is a thing that is not specifically invented for the DSA. It's something that exists in many areas and where we can learn from other practices, where we can adopt ways in how you manage and plan your research practices to these specific contexts. So this is an area where support is happening. And this includes like things we have heard before earlier today, minimization strategies, maybe also deletion protocols. So when you will be asked in this process, how long do you need the data? These are things that fall into that. It also relates, and so I've listed here examples of where this is relevant in all the DSA legislations. When we hear that, for example, researchers need to demonstrate they have some sort of training for working with sensitive data, this is also something that falls in this category. And this is another example where I think, well, it is acute for all of you now, because in these forms that we have just seen, people will actually ask, how are you doing this? How are you doing that? But it's something that we need to be aware of for other data collection approaches, for other ways to get to work with online platform data in general. So also if you're looking into data donation studies, if you're scraping from the web, you should be aware of these things. You should be aware that you're dealing with potentially very sensitive data, and that management strategies, ways to think about what is the minimal data that I need for this research question are important as well. So it's kind of acute now, but it's something that we as a field need to engage with on a broader scale for all kind of research questions we have to online platform data now and in the future. Secure processing environments. So this is also becoming very acute under the delegated act specifications. So again, I listed kind of delegated act 9A to L, because there's a lot of paragraphs that deal with the exact requirements for how should this secure processing environment be set up, what do you need to demonstrate, and we are very aware that for individual researchers, a PhD candidate sitting in a lab, this is an immense kind of new barrier to getting this into practice. And this is where, again, research infrastructures can play a key role. And this is an area that we are currently investing in as GESIS specifically to create settings that will work for researchers in the future. So we're not there yet, but we're getting there. And this includes, again, it's an area where we can rely on principles that exist. And I'm specifically pointing out the 5 SAFEs principles here, and you can read this paper here for a general introduction to that. You can look at some websites for what this means, but it basically includes these different areas, different layers of safeguards that we can establish on the people side, on the data side, on the infrastructure side, that together make a safe context. And the good thing is, all these things specified under Delegated Act Article 9 do kind of map to the 5 SAFE principles. So they do not reinvent the wheel. They are in line with what the community is working with in the area of secure processing environment, trusted research environments already. So we have a good foundation to kind of apply that to new contexts now. Secondary data usage. So this is something that we at GESIS have also put into our response to the draft delegated act as one of our, like the big thing on our wish list. It relates to what Rebecca said earlier, that we need kind of common use data sets. That was the term Rebecca used. We typically talk about different terminology here. It could be benchmark data sets, it could be like standard data sets, but the key thing is, without having data that we can make accessible for secondary usage, that we can make accessible to the entire community, establishing quality standards, establishing reproducible research, establishing comparison in what we are doing is super hard to almost impossible. So this is kind of my, one of the biggest wishes, that we will find solutions for making that possible. And again, here I'm not only necessarily talking about Article 44 things. This is something that we also need to consider for other types of data, be it 4012, be it, again, data donations, other ways to collect data. So if we arrive at cases where we can make data reusable for others, we will have a really huge leap in research quality in the field. And again, this also relates to the secure processing environment, because they might help in this context. It also relates to other things in the infrastructure world, especially the FAIR criteria. So FAIR stands for findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. And ideally, our data sets should be all of this. So they should map these criteria that are already out there, and that includes things like metadata standards, applying good documentation practices, so that we can actually also make sense of what an exemplary data set is consisting of. Okay. So this is, again, I have included some pointers to the legislation where this is relevant. The one thing I would like to point out is the delegated act, the DSA Article 40, specifically talks about the research that is based on this kind of data has to be accessible in the end. It does not necessarily say the underlying data has to, it doesn't say anything about it, but we all know that journals are moving on. They will probably request seeing the data for the review process. There will be questions about, okay, what are you actually working with here? So we will have the situation that in order to be able to publish based on the data, people will ask about the underlying data. So we have acute needs for solutions here. We might also, in other contexts, need to demonstrate whether some data is already available somewhere. And while the data access portal might list catalogs for what has been requested under Article 44, we don't necessarily know which other data sets might be out there already that have been produced in other ways. And here again, research infrastructure, data catalogs with standard metadata, with documentation can help making the case whether some data is already there or not. Just a little hint at the bigger picture. So I showed you these 3 examples, but it's part of much more that is going on in the infrastructure world. And this is, I think Julian also mentioned it, we have this cycle. We have things that kind of happen in circles. We want to find new data. We want to plan and design our research and so on. And this all relates to the things that I've been mentioning here in different places. So when we plan our research design, we need to make sure that it's a responsible research design with data minimization, with following specific legal frameworks that we need. For this, we need data management plans. We have, when we collect, we have these different ways to do it. We have a lot of things to do here in the secure processing environment area in order to be able to have ways in which we can analyze data meaningfully, but there's lots of other layers around data quality standards, data interpretability, also relating back to what Jeff just showed us. And then for the other half of the circle, we have all these questions about how do we make it reaccessible, how do we document it, how do we help others to make sense of the data. So, are we there yet? Not quite, but we're getting there. So what we are currently doing at GESIS is we are preparing for adding consulting on these specific questions in the DSA context to our general consulting offers that we have. So we already consult people for how do we get access to data in certain areas. This is being extended at the moment, and this will include data management and data quality components soon. We already have a secure processing environment for survey data, which is our secure data center. We are currently reorganizing this, so it will in the future also be able to hold this kind of data. This will take some time, but we have an interim solution very recently that can help us for the first round of Article 44 applications to provide case setting to make this work and to also demonstrate that this can be done responsibly and securely in different ways. So if you want to talk to us about this, some more colleagues are sitting somewhere in the audience, so find GESIS people and ask them about this or talk to me. Rebecca asked the question, so will Article 40 save us, or claiming it won't? I'm rephrasing, will infrastructure save us? I'm not entirely sure, but I can confidently say it will help. It will help us on different layers. It will help us getting forward with all these things in the future. So I'm quite optimistic that together we can make some progress. And this leads me to the conclusion that is similar to Rebecca's conclusions. We need to connect, we need to exchange experience, we need to work together on this. And if you want to work with us specifically, please reach out. I think in addition to the common use data sets, it is super important to now create applications that can demonstrate how we responsibly deal with this kind of data, what the setting can be, with going through the full, thinking through all the layers of data management practices, data protection, and so on thoroughly, and make good cases and discuss the lessons learned that we will have along the way with the community. And with that, thanks a lot for listening. I'll be here the entire day and happy to reach out, connect, and so on. Thanks.